Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Decline and Fall of Western
Oh,
culture.
jeez.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, wait a minute. No, Western popular culture. No, wait, I'm just kidding. It's Geeky Geezers. Fun stuff. Fun. Ah.
Well, I should hope it would be.
I'm your host, Aged Boomer. My co-host, PaPa Pacelli.
Then I'm Troy Pacelli. Hi, how you doing?
Okay, what you sipping on? What you sipping
I,
on?
I'm just sipping on a diet squirt. It's Sunday. It's a work night. Don't want to get too silly.
Cool.
Although I'll tell you, I'm looking at the news thinking I should be drinking much more heavily. Did buy a bottle of Stoli this weekend, just in case.
Bottle of Stoli. I like the sound of that. I'm not sure what that is.
It's a Russian vodka. Well, actually, you know what?
Buy it while you can.
I say that. And Netter asked that. She, when I picked it up, she's like, "Does that support Russia?" And I'm like, "I got no idea. I have no idea if Stoli is actually made in Russia and brought over here, or if it's made here and it's just called Stoli. Who knows? I mean, is it like saying, I got my pizza at Rosati's? Is that supporting, Italy? Probably not. It's just supporting a local, artisan or whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I just do it to be contrary. But, well, you know what? We probably don't want to get too into modern politics. That's not what the show's about.
No, we have enough crap to talk about. Anyway, we got Boomer
Right.
sounds a bit high. Laugh out loud. Let me say hi to the chat.
I see the transition there. That was nice.
What? Oh, yeah, whatever.
Sounds a bit high. Let's say hi to the chat.
No, funny. I didn't pick up on that because
trying to help
I'm
you out
kidding,
here.
of course. You didn't ask me what I'm sipping on, by the way.
What are
after
you
all that
sipping
whole
on?
big
No,
production.
let me guess. You're slipping on a something or other sweet tea peach or something.
No, I got a mucho mango here from Arizona.
Oh, okay. Mucho mango. There you go.
I know. I should have saved that for Mexican Iron Man on Friday, right? No, I'm
Yes.
kidding.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward to that stream.
Which I have confirmed. In fact, in doing so, I said, dude, I got to tell you. And I told him, what we talked about, how I said I got to confirm with him before Friday. And when I did, Netter sitting like 3 feet away from me is like, Mikey, really? And then she clapped like a little kid. He says, oh, tell her I'm looking forward to seeing you guys.
Everybody loves the Mexican Iron Man.
Right?
You guys should have a good talk about toys or maybe other things. Let me sign to the chat that we got Auditor Dread, Mr. Matchstick. Looking forward to you talking about Star Wars Eclipse. How did a game studio like Quantic Dream get a hold of Star Wars license?
We'll get into that, buddy.
Oh, Quantic Dream. I remember it wasn't Beyond Two Souls. It was the one before that, Heavy Rain. And I remember back in the day, I used to listen to this. I used to listen to the Game Trailers podcast, and this one guy, Barkus Beer, he was talking about it. He was talking about because it was a very story-driven game, almost like maybe an evolved version of those old point-click adventure games. Right? It was more story-driven, dramatic stuff. And he says he was saying the plot in the Twilight books was more engaging than what was in this game. He was not happy with the plot. And I guess they're the ones that got a hold of the Star Wars license because apparently Disney gives that to anybody. They gave the Star Wars license to EA, Electronic Arts, and they were putting loot boxes in the game. This was right around the time as Last Jedi. That was the other big Star Wars scandal at the time. Besides Last Jedi, it was also the loot box insanity. I think they got a call from
the only EA game that I ever really got into was The Sims, and when what are they on? Sims 3, Sims 4, whatever it is they're on right now. I was getting all the expansions and whatnot. When they got to the Star Wars Baku one, I said, fuck that. I do not need Star Wars in my modern setting Sims,
It might have been funny if they had done like a Galaxy's Edge expansion. Like you're working at the Star Wars theme park.
Well, what's funny is that, now EA, they're really pushing, the wedding expansion, and all of their material and their in-game characters are same-sex marriages. And I would be bothered by that, except ever since Sims 1, people have been making one of the most common patches people have been custom making is to rearrange how relationships work in the game, if you know what I mean. And so this was the first iteration of Sims where they were like, you know what, we're just going to remove all those restrictions, and your character can, have whatever inclination you want to give it. And I'm like, well,
Really?
you kind of can't really complain about, giving people, the ability to do whatever they want in a game. So,
It was the 90s. There were some pervy dudes out there.
Oh, there still are.
Okay.
There's whole web pages of content you could download.
Oh my
for
goodness.
The Sims.
Depensec, welcome. Zootopia. Oh, Zootopia. I was going to talk. I'm probably going to have you on to talk about the latest Bond movie, if that's all right with my co-host here at some point.
Who's Zootopia? Oh yeah, Zootopia.
Yeah, we were going to do that for a while. So
Zootopia's good people, absolutely.
I finally got around to watching No Time to Die.
I'm giving Auditor Dread that stink eye. Though.
You
do
not have to watch.
I just picked out anyone at random.
you do not have to watch that to join in the discussion, because I honestly want to tell you not to waste your time.
I was just going to say, I'd like to be the one that doesn't watch it, and you guys give me your.
That's probably what we'll do. So
and I could be the objective. Okay, well, what I'm hearing from you guys is blah 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 blah.
Yeah, so let me know. I can always text you over the phone or something. We can figure out a day. But if next Sunday works for you, we can do it then. But yeah, that's just. I'm not happy, and I knew going into it, I'd already heard enough about it, but I really was not happy with that movie. In fact, I purposely waited till the local public library got it in, because I wasn't paying money for it, but I still wanted to talk about it, and I felt I'd seen every other Bond movie. I needed to see this one at least to give my honest opinion, objective opinion, and so you'll hear that from me next week. But Deleted Scenes, welcome. Auditor Dread, always good to see you. I think did I say Mr. Matchstick? Bought a ticket for the Batman tomorrow. Hopefully it'll live up to the hype. I'll have to let it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Deleted Scenes, it's just that he was there and it reminded me. We were just over on Jedi Bill's stream earlier today. He was doing a rewatch of one that Netter had done previously. The Trinity. They call me Trinity. And he's got a different outlet for sharing his stream rather than Discord. I think I'm going to look into it. Maybe ask him a little bit about it, get more details. Maybe I'll switch to that. Might be something easier for me to use than Discord when I do a rewatch. I've had a lot of technical difficulties with Discord.
Yeah,
people have noticed.
It's a bit of a tricky system, though. Since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the ownership of Stoli has been disputed between the Russian state-owned company FKP, Stoli Import, and SPI Group, a private company founded and owned by Yuri Sheffer, Russian-born billionaire. Moved to Luxembourg when Putin came to power. Did you know that Luxembourg is where Dracula, the series, remember that was one of our earliest good old days?
No. I had never heard that before.
Yes, the Dracula show, the kids' Dracula show. And like I said...
Wait, are you talking about the one that I got on DVD, that series?
Yeah, the one with the kids and Dracula.
Oh, I think you did mention that.
We did a good old days about it early on.
I was distracted because Auditor Dread was giving me grief about giving him grief. I'm just playing with you, man. You know, you were just the first name that I saw.
Stink eye.
Yep.
I don't know. I sometimes would listen to this podcast called it's 1951 Downplace or something like that. It was basically it was a podcast for Hammer movies, and they were talking about how in this one called Kiss of the Vampire, I think the name of the Hammer movie was.
I think I've seen.
So this guy shows up at the cemetery, and everyone in the town is giving him the stink eye at this funeral.
Yeah,
that's why I first heard that expression.
Yeah.
Okay.
That just means nasty look.
Yeah, like the evil eye, but I like stink eye better.
No, it's not something you said, Auditor Dread. I was just playing. You guys are all good people. I think we've weeded out all the jerks.
Hopefully. Mm-hmm. We'll see. There's always room for more people to show up, though. So anyway, we can talk.
Zootopia's here, and he's got a blue wrench, so you watch it.
Happy to talk about Bond anytime. You want to come on next Sunday? We'll do it at the beginning of the show. We could do it then. Yeah, next time, next Sunday. I'll let you know though. But I'll send you the link before the stream. But let me know if you can't make next Sunday. Otherwise, we'll just consider you in there for saying this time next Sunday. All right, let's talk about the good old days. And we had a rewatch on Friday.
We did.
It's a link in the chat.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what we're going to add to it here, but the Secret of NIMH.
And love, it seems, made flying dreams to bring you close to me. Yeah, I love that movie and got me all the feels. Some of it, man, I'd actually forgotten how much I really, really enjoyed that movie and how solid the storytelling is. You know, I mean, you're writing a story for kids, for families, really, and there's some pretty adult, and I don't mean adult in like any kind of sexual content or anything, but just very mature themes, and they don't pull punches with it. And I've always said that's good. You don't need to sugarcoat things too much for kids. They can handle it. But at the same time, the stories weren't simplified either. They're intact. There's at least a line or something that explains everything. You know, I don't think there's any loose ends left out for, well, why this, why that, or what about, you know? And the following day after the rewatch, just because I'm a completist and maybe a little masochistic, I received Secret of NIMH 2, Timmy to the Rescue. Yeah, not really as good a movie, not at all. No, but we're not talking about that.
That was during the age where we had all of these terrible made-for-video sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Disney started this. People keep thinking like I ran about Disney now. No. Cinderella 2, Happily Ever After. There's no sequel. It was Happily Ever After at the end of Cinderella. There's no sequel there. Stop.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I didn't see any of these Disney sequels, so maybe some of them were better than others.
Let me tell you something about the basic concept of a fairy tale. If the fairy tale ends with, and they lived happily ever after, that's the sequel right there. Them living happily ever after. You don't need to put that into a movie because that would be boring. All you do is you see their happy life ever after.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway, but back to Secret of NIMH. Like I said on Friday, I'd seen the show on Showtime. Everyone was out seeing it
over and over again, right?
Yeah, all the kids were seeing ET that summer. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's dark for a kid's movie because I don't think there's anything in that movie a kid can't handle, but there are some slightly mature themes like the villain and the sword fight at the end. It's rather a brutal
I did watch one commentary on it when it's, how a channel will, in order to talk about something, give you a synopsis and you'll see shots and gets to Jenner was the bad guy, right?
Yes.
And it says, and then here's Jenner, who's absolutely not evil at all. It's like, no, you can tell by looking at him, he's evil, right?
But he had style. Even though he's not even in the movie that long. Yeah. He has style. He has a personality, the way he's explaining how he's going to do it. There is a certain charm to him, which I thought was interesting.
I did make the one comment about, and I said there's not much to say about the differences between the original book that it's based on and the film, because actually the film is an excellent adaptation of that first book, except they changed the character of Jenner to make him very much the evil character. He's not, because there wasn't really a true villain. I mean, I guess you could argue the humans with the tractor were, but they're certainly not evil. They don't even know that there's this society of rats or any of that, right?
Well, they're the adversary or the antagonist. Well, I don't even know if they were the antagonists. I don't know.
I mean, they're no more the antagonist than, I guess, the cyclone in Wizard of Oz would be. It's just a force of nature as far as the animals are concerned, right? But
yeah, actually, that's a lot of what that movie. In fact, maybe that's what the book was. It's more about the animals versus nature, because I mean,
or the humans representing nature to them, But that political play between Nicodemus and Jenner really did exist in the book, but it was just presented as two opposing opinions. One is it's perfectly fine for us to stay low, stay here, stealing electricity from the farm. and Jenner saying, no, we really need to go and start, first, it makes us vulnerable to the humans and dependent on the humans. We should get out on our own, find our own place, create our own resources, and honestly, you could, from an adult point of view, break it down as a little bit of political headbutting, right? But Don Bluth kind of ratchet it up to 11 and made it, Nicodemus, if you don't come around to my way of thinking, I'm going to kill yourself. Says, Jenner Clinton.
Of course. But then, of course, we have the Mrs. Brisby, who you said they changed her name from Frisbee to Brisby.
Yeah, exactly. So the story I told was that the original book is called Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of NIMH. And they changed her name, or the family name, to Brisby. And I never understood why. I knew about it for years because I literally read the book as a kid after having seen the cartoon. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Never made the connection that Frisbee is also the brand name for a toy disc that you throw and catch. And
or your dog might catch too.
Yeah, and Don Bluth was a little concerned that Whammo might come along and whammo them with a
lawsuit,
a trademark lawsuit. And on the one hand, you think, "Oh, that's silly," but then the more you think about it, the more you're like, probably not a bad idea that he did that.
No, definitely. But the animation, though, I mean, that was really at that point in time state of the art.
And that's why he did it. He was basically making the statement because he left Disney. He felt, and this was when Disney was really putting out some crap animation. All of their, and there's videos about this, guys, if you're interested, where what they would do is they would literally trace over other cells from other movies. The dance sequence in
Robin Hood
is a direct tracing of Snow White dancing with the dwarves. I kid you not. You can see it. It's terrible. It's so obvious. And there's a lot of things like that. It's so lazy. And even you look at Snow White, for example, how sharp and crisp that artwork is. And then you look at Robin Hood and you just, these, it's sketch lines and kind of some blurs in the background. It's just half-assed. It really is. And Don Bluth said, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to do it right. We're going to do it in the spirit of the way, Walt Disney would have done it. And not only did he not cut any corners and whatnot, although he did do something that Disney did, something that Bakshi did,
Bakshi?
Is that how it's pronounced? Yeah. And Rankin and Bass did with their cartoons, rotoscoping. And this isn't anything new. What's great about rotoscoping is it's very difficult to draw the full animation of somebody physically talking, right? When you see me talk on screen, you'll see me talking with my hands. I'll hit the mic, boom, because I'm animated when I talk. Well, Don Bluth wanted to make sure that was in his characters. So when you see them talking, it's their whole bodies. It's not just their face and their lips moving, right? And so you do get rotoscoping. He did have actors, act out scenes and stuff like that and then trace those. But he wasn't ripping off previous animations, especially because this was his first feature film. He didn't have much to draw from anyway. But also how do you say, the technology he was using was pushing that envelope. When you think about the animation of the Secret of NIMH, you think about Nicodemus and the owl and their glowing eyes. You think about the sparkly necklace that she has that kind of glows, the magical effects, Nicodemus writing on his scroll and the letters, sparking up and stuff. That lighting is throughout in the background and everything. Very difficult, very expensive form of animation, where what they would do is they would shine lights through the gels, and the animation would have empty spaces for the light to shine through.
Yeah.
Or just very thinly colored so that light would come through. Very difficult to do. No one had really done, well, I mean, they'd done things like that for certain special effects, but not like this, not to get that effect, and not so omnipresent throughout the film. And it was very expensive, and Don Bluth was very aware of it, because he and the people that were working with him literally were financing this movie themselves. They had mortgaged their houses to make this movie. They were working 16-hour days trying to get this thing done as close to budget as possible. They went significantly over budget. And although the film made money, I think there's still question about whether or not Don Bluth considered it a financial success. The studio did, but I'm not sure that he necessarily did. But it was an investment that he was trying to get something started, and I think people took notice, but he didn't have the big corporate backing to kind of keep steamrolling. And well, where's Don Bluth Studios today? Most of his movies are now owned by Disney through 20th Century Fox.
That's disturbing to think about it. Yeah. They own Titan AE now. It was actually weird when Titan AE came out, because Titan AE comes out and it's this far-flung space adventure, and it doesn't do so hot at the box office. And like a year later, Disney puts out Atlantis Lost Empire, which was more of an underwater thing, but also high adventure like Titan AE, and that one also did not do the box office it deserved to do. So they were kind of similar theme. I mean, they were not similar theme, but like the same audience would have gone to see both, because they were like, But
the one thing I did want to point out, Anastasia, that was Don Bluth.
We'll talk about that later.
We will be talking about that a little bit later when we get into the whole Disney thing. Yeah,
I have to say, but Secret of NIMH, it just was a childhood favorite. It's really a story about a mother trying to save her son's life, and any child is going to immediately, that's going to resonate with them. Hopefully, if they have a mother, they're going to understand. That.
And a single mom. Literally, looking for help, to having to move her home. Otherwise, her home is going to be destroyed. Right.
Oh,
and intelligent rats that, have the engineering capability to move the house and so forth. And
all the little details, though, the other animals in the area that know when the plow is coming, and they're treating it like this monster or this force of nature they have to get away from. And you feel the terror, and you're realizing there's this whole other world that's fascinating, and it's right under our feet, and we don't even see it. And that's kind of what Secret of NIMH shows us.
And Mrs. Brisby, of course. I'm drawing a blank, and Al's probably going to give me crap for it, because he knows, like, off the top of his head, the name of the voice actress that did her voice. And very soft spoken, very sweet, and she's wants help because she can't move her son from the house because he has pneumonia and he's sick and he can't be moved for a number of weeks. And my wife Nanette over here says, why, if she knows that the plow comes every year, why is her house there? And, why hasn't she moved already? And literally, just as she says that, this sweet little voice is like, I would move, but the plow's coming early this year. And she's like, I'm sorry.
Also,
I didn't mean to make an accusation. But she's right. I mean, why build your house there? Well, maybe when you
didn't build it, they claimed that house. And think about it, it's a nice cement brick
cinder
structure,
block. Yeah,
which is probably very advantageous against other things that they're having to deal with out there in the wild. It's just that they have to get out of there when the plow comes.
I actually said after the stream, I said to her, actually, the more I thought about it, not why didn't she move to another place before? Why would, if you're plowing that field every year, you allow there to be a cinder block sitting in the middle of your field that you might run over with your tractor?
Well, There's that point.
That's the bigger question. It's like, yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah, all sarcasm. Elizabeth Hartman as Mrs. Brisby, but
Thank
also
you.
Dom DeLuise, Derek Jacobi, Arthur Mallet, Jodie Hicks, Will Wheaton, John Carradine, Shan Doherty. It's a wonderful little animated movie, and we typically do not look at the 80s as a renaissance time for animation because this was before the Disney second renaissance happened, beginning with Little Mermaid, I believe in '89. That's when that came out. And before then, they just kept having flops. And then you had some of the other Don Bluth stuff, which I'm not as much a fan of, like Land Before Time. Maybe I should rewatch those. I know. I think the problem with Land Before Time is it got all those questionable sequels.
Well, yes, and Land Before Time is very much more. It's far less mature than like Secret of NIMH. But someone else pointed out. Okay, so just as I was describing how Disney stole animation from themselves by tracing over Snow White for Robin Hood, that's not exactly what Don Bluth did. But if you watch the scenes of Jeremy with the cat, and you watch in The Land Before Time the T-Rex attack, they're not identical, they're not traced or anything like that. But the story beats and the framing of the scenes are almost point for point. I don't really see a problem with that. In fact, it's very interesting because, again, it makes you, if you notice that, you think, wow, to a mouse and to a bird, a cat kind of is like a T-Rex to these smaller animals, right? And all of the camera angles, I mean, there's not a real camera, but you know what I mean in animation. The point of view perspective is upwards so that you are looking up at this big cat that is making you feel like you're seeing it from the mouse's point of view. And that's kind of scary. You know, that effort can eat me. Look at, I used, when we had Mischief, I'd look at that effort and go, if I was that small, you'd friggin' eat me. I have no doubt about it.
But yeah, it's a great little movie. Check it out if you get a chance to. You can watch for free on Pluto and Tubi, I believe, right?
Yes, at least for the time being.
And like I said,
things change from month to month.
You want to hear us rant more about it? Listen to our commentary from Friday night too.
We did a 2-hour commentary through the whole movie, so you could use this as a DVD extra if you want to. Although if you do have the DVD,
it has a commentary by Don Bluth, right?
You can hear Don Bluth do it much more justice than we can, but we come at it as fans. He comes at it as the authority.
Yeah. But I wish Don Bluth well. I don't know if he'll ever get another animated movie done. He had actually, the last project I knew he wanted to work on was going to be, remember the arcade game Dragon's Lair? He actually wanted to make that as a movie.
That totally would have worked as a movie. It totally would have. Actually, so would Space Ace, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I remember Space Ace. I like the redhead in that, but anyway, the old arcade game.
Well, the blonde in Dragon's Lair was
Daphne.
Daphne.
Oh, please, she's like enemy number one to all of the feminists that were ranting about the women in video games. She always showed up, Daphne.
You know what's funny is I hear these feminists, bitching up and down about the male gaze,
of course,
and then they're the ones that have these sexy shots up on Insta and stuff, and it's like, you're such friggin' hypocrites.
It's where we are. Actually, well, it may not be where we are anymore considering current events. But let's move on to the news. Y'all want to hear the news?
Let's get into it.
Moving a fast clip. Now, please, Troy, we already did this story last week.
Yes, we did, but you kind of need to. I know you saw my note.
Okay. Discovery CEO tells Wall Street goal of Warner Media merger is to compete, not win the spending war.
Right. We talked about this last
week. Yeah.
And I was pointing out that this for Warner is very much like Bob Chapek, what he was saying about their plans for business, right? Where they're going to put finances ahead of, they don't put it this way, but what we all hear is we're putting making money over political agendas and messaging. Okay. We're going to stop the preaching that's putting everyone off and start giving you good material that you like so that you'll give us money and we can continue to stay in business. Shocking, right? I mean, imagine that. Who would have come up with that kind of an idea? Well, we talked about it last week, and not to put you on the spot, Boomer, but I think you kind of challenged me a little bit like, well, I know you probably think this is a good thing. And yeah, I do. I think this is a good thing. But here's an indication. This next piece that you're going to share is actually demonstrating this is evidence of them actually doing what we talked about last week.
Yeah, well, I may be able to challenge you on your point. We have another article coming up later, which
true,
there were some troubling things in that. Which
that is true. Yes.
I understand not throwing good money after bad talent. That's kind of what I want to say.
Absolutely,
and that's the problem. But Chris Link's memo to CNN employees: together we will double down on what's working well and quickly eliminate what's not. Is that the whole network? Oh, cable news. Yes, this is not necessarily geeky news, but it ties into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. In his memo to CNN employees, the network's incoming leader, Chris Licht.
Yep.
Licht.
I don't know how it's pronounced.
It'd be funny if it was like Lich, like an undead sorcerer. Praised the network's coverage of the Ukraine crisis, yet did not go into specifics of what direction he wants to take the network. He wrote, I know you have a lot of questions. Perhaps the biggest one is how will CNN change? The honest answer is that I don't know yet. David Zaslav has given me one simple directive to ensure that CNN remains the global leader in news as part of Warner Brothers Discovery. He wrote that he planned, quote unquote, to do a lot of listening. Together we will double down on what's working well and quickly eliminate what's not, he wrote. David Zaslav, the incoming CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, wrote in a separate memo that I am confident that you will love Chris and that he is the next great leader to move CNN forward to even higher heights all around the world and on every platform. Zaslav too praised CNN's coverage of the Ukraine story and wrote of the legacy of Ted Turner, CNN's founder, while not mentioning Jeff Zucker, who resigned as CNN's president earlier this month. He has kind of become persona non grata. They're not wanting to talk about him. Jeff Zucker. Have you noticed this?
Yes, I have.
Which, to be fair, he was... I mean, I don't know how I feel, but the reasons they got rid of him, he was dating an employee. Is that what happened?
That's what I've heard alleged. Yeah,
I guess. But was she complaining about harassment, or was it just disclosed that they just been dating or something?
That's a very good point. You're right. I don't think I've heard,
because I don't think she had a problem with him or their relationship.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
one could argue, however, that if you are in that working environment, hey, this is going on. It's not appropriate. You need to have an affair with all of us or none of us, I guess.
I'm sorry. That's not funny. It's very serious. Anyway, I don't know.
You gotta expect me to interject levity, especially when I don't think about what I'm saying before I say it. That's how my best material comes out.
I thought I had heard someone who owns CNN saying that they desperately wanted to get rid of the company because it's just bleeding them dry. Like, does that channel really make money?
Well, and I'm going to say this about CNN, and this is anecdotal. This is not something that I can cite. I don't have examples for you, but I have been seeing more and more articles coming from CNN where I look at them and raise an eyebrow and go, hey, that almost sounds like journalism. Things
was this recently?
Yeah, in just the past couple weeks, where I'm looking at it and going, this is not the kind of coverage I would have expected from them 5 years ago. I think CNN had absolutely become fake news propaganda. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll say the same thing about Fox News too. Okay. Yeah. And a lot of other big cable news. But then I see some of these articles and I'm like, there's no way they would have published this just even last year or the year before. So something's changing there and it's starting to look like journalism. And it's starting to look, it smells to me like journalism sells, because that's why people are leaving these stations and going to alternative news sources.
He was Colbert's producer. I don't trust him. Fair enough. Is that recently, was he? I don't know. Who was Colbert's producer? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we need, but even so, I'm not expecting anyone to trust anyone. The one thing I am expecting you to trust, though, is the free market profit motive, and follow the money. That you can trust because it's like a force of nature.
They must have been bleeding viewers, though, especially after the last election.
I've seen the numbers for CNN. They were looking miserable. And there was a lot of people talking about, is CNN going to survive? Honestly, I kid you not. This is talking behind the scenes kind of stuff. Not a lot of, in the trades or anything like that, but investors and stuff were starting to talk like this. And this is the kind of indication that might be, you don't trust him. You don't trust where he is politically. That's fine. But you can trust somebody to go, you know what, I'll stop screwing around and, shape up because I want to keep my job and I want to keep this company running.
Yeah, let's see. It looks like he was the producer on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert until, I believe, 2019. No, for the past 4 seasons, no.
I also don't want to dig too deep into what the role of a producer is on a show like that.
Right.
How much Colbert had running the, had the reins of the show himself. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics there.
Well, is it also possible too that when he got hired by Discovery Warner Brothers that they basically told him fix this mess over at CNN? Do you think that's possible?
So. I suspect that's exactly what we're seeing. So yeah.
So we'll see how this plays out. Like I said, we'll see. I mean, I have such a low opinion of cable news.
I really do feel like, and there's actually a number of articles we're going to be going through tonight where I would be very hard pressed to say anything other than it looks like woke is out. The era of woke is out, and anyone who's still pushing a woke agenda, honestly, this I can speak to. Okay, there are literally people in the industry behind the scenes that are saying, "Did you see what this company did? They're going woke like it was 10 years ago. They don't realize it's over. They're shooting themselves in the foot."
I mean, maybe the peak will be the Eminem story. I don't know. Remember the Eminem story from a few months ago? Okay. We'll see what happens.
The people with the money see this. They see what's happening. They see how badly marketing goes when it goes woke. And they go, we're done with your advertisement company. We're going with someone else.
Where Arnold had that problem when he said "screw your freedom," and that one company pulled out of his thing.
Exactly, we talked about that. I mean, I'm telling you, profit motive. What is it? We keep quoting it. It used to be like a phrase from the villain, but it's a truism. Greed, for lack of a better word, is good because it drives getting things done. I mean, it's like saying evolution is good. Right? It sucks that but living creatures have to die, but survival of the fittest makes everything better, and the next generation is stronger, and the next generation is stronger.
What?
And that's how money works too. Companies die when they don't provide the services people want, and the ones that do make money.
That was the philosophy of the Shadows on Babylon 5, remember?
True.
They would cause all these disasters, or the races that emerge are stronger. Remember that?
It's a very Spartan concept.
Yes.
The Spartans would, if you either succeed, win, or die.
Well, we'll see what happens. Disney has a weakness in the streaming wars. Now, here's where I might counteract what you were saying about the money thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is a long article, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I pulled some clips from it. Okay, so this is for a little ways in. Okay, what is interesting about the situation, however, is how it evidences the pressure on Disney and other legacy studios to bring massive shows to streaming, to do it now and do it smoothly, and to leverage their IP to distinguish themselves from Netflix. Yeah, basically the whole preamble was about how the streaming wars is heating up. They actually made a point, and they had a good point in this article. Why are Amazon and Apple even involved in any of this?
Exactly.
This really isn't their territory, and I don't know. But the Disney brand and library provides a huge advantage with consumers And it also brings big expectations, unique creative risk for shows like Beauty and the Beast, just like HBO Max is dealing with on the Game of Thrones spinoff House of Dragon, and Amazon has with its Lord of the Rings shows. Great expectations in a pressure cooker, high volume environment can expose weaknesses. And they made a point about what was it? How the Beauty and the Beast prequel show has been canceled.
Yep.
Yeah, that was going to go into production, and that's no longer around because was Emma Watson going to be on that show?
I don't know, although I know that all of the stills that I've seen related to articles about it have had her, but that could just be because she played the role in the movies.
Maybe they would have cast somebody else. Josh Gad was apparently working on scripts for it, and I know he was in the movie. But anyway, think about it. Thanks to Kevin Feige at Marvel Studios and Kathy Kennedy and Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, Lucasfilm Disney has done a good job establishing what tentpole Marvel and Star Wars shows look and feel like on Disney Plus. I'd say that has less to do, well, okay, but Disney branded TV, despite having access to 90 years of the world's most recognized characters, hasn't really created the template for live action Disney Plus success. There have been some moderate family hits like the Mighty Ducks show, and adaptations are in the works for Percy Jackson and Spider-Man Chronicles, among others. Unit's current leader, Io Davis, was just promoted in September, taking over from Gary Marsh. Insiders say to expect bigger and better output from her team. Again, I question some of the things in here. I mean, maybe that's basically what it's saying, though. But Kevin Feige, those Marvel shows, have they been big hits? Maybe they have ratings-wise. I don't know.
No, as far I mean, again, anything that's streaming, it's hard to say. And honestly, the best source I have for numbers is Valiant Renegade. But to be honest with you, no, the numbers only matter insofar as what they say about subscriptions numbers for the streaming services and what those finances mean to the investors, right? And they could be worse, but they could definitely be better. One of the things that Kamran has said about this, not recently, but a while ago, it was good logical sense. Some things work well going to streaming service. Some things do well going to network television, and some things are better released on, at the theaters, right? And the question is going to be going forward for good showrunners to know which is which, right? Just like years ago, do I release a movie in all theaters, in just some theaters, just certain areas? Do I go directly to cable? Do I go directly to home media, or do I make a television show out of this? Right? In a way, the streaming services and the film companies now coming out of this pandemic era are wrestling with those questions, right? And I don't think anybody's got it perfect. And I think we've oversimplified it, right? I mean, when I say we, I mean like YouTubers like us, not being very nuanced. We've been overgeneralizing, saying, no, you are leaving money on the table if you don't release it in the theaters, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not everything really should be released in theaters, right? I mean, Cinderella 3 should not be released in theaters. It should go directly to DVD, So I think they're still working those kinds of things out.
I suppose. Let me go back on with Disney Plus desperate to grow subs. There's been zero breakouts so far from the Davis unit, and nothing with the scale, potential impact of what Beauty and the Beast was supposed to be. The kind of show that convinces people to subscribe and prevents churn. Why is that? Churn is when people drop a subscription, go somewhere else, and then
possibly to come back later on when the show that they actually do like
when there's a new Mandalorian season.
Exactly right.
Disney is known among deal makers to be cheaper than its rivals, and it generally treats talent much worse on projects based on its own IP than it does on so-called originals. This is true.
Yeah.
take a look at any of those Star Wars movies, the treatment of some of the directors on those,
Yep.
whether or not you agree if they were doing a good job. Apparently, Ryan Johnson was given carte blanche to do what he wanted, but everybody else, it was. I know. I don't like J.J. Abrams, but I know that even he, I think they were interfering with the final cut of that.
Oh,
movie,
absolutely. They were.
So it's.
And I'm not giving him too much of a defense for that, but I think you're absolutely right. Also, I am gonna point out though that again, like the analogy I made previously, this isn't anything new either, right? If you have, we said this previously about the 20th Century Fox acquisition, right? The Disney stuff was given, priority, and anything that was 20th Century Fox was literally shafted to the back burner,
Oh yeah.
And this is again nothing new. This has always been true with acquisitions and stuff like that.
Let me see. And it goes on to say, as I first wrote last summer, nearly all Disney TV deals for originals have shifted from the back-end profit definitions that dominated the linear television landscape and made hit showrunners extremely rich to the streaming errors series bonus exhibit, a made-up concept that creates a pool of SBE points that translate into cash payments. The goal for Disney is to come closer to Netflix's fixed compensation system and move away from the sliding profit participation that results in huge payouts and potential litigation. I'm assuming they're referring to maybe the Black Widow snafu from the other year, but
that's at least part of it, sure.
But it also dissuades a certain class of creator from wanting to work with Disney. Say several representatives, especially on an intellectual property driven project. Disney's Walden will shell out to win a project she wants for Hulu, for instance, and that outlet has had recent hits with adult oriented shows like Only Murders in the Building and 9 Perfect Strangers. But if a writer, producer, actor is hired to work on an adaptation of a Disney property, there is often no back end, no bow out, no bonuses. It's a fee for service situation, which, don't get me wrong, isn't as significant for top talent, but Disney usually doesn't share in the upside, and many of its rivals either do or they buy out that upside. They're just not competitive, one lawyer griped when I asked about Disney. See, this is a problem I have with this. We were making a point about a lot of the stuff I heard about Loki, about, the Infinity Stones are nonsense, and they just keep them as paperweights in the office and on Loki and stuff. And I'm seeing a lot of not so great writing on these big deal IPs, and I think because they're not trading in the best talent for some of these shows.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this during that time too. We were kind of looking at Kevin Feige and saying, yeah, he's gone down that, eliminating half your audience, bandwagon kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's very clear that ain't gonna fly very well in the new corporate structure of Disney going forward.
Here's my issue, though. I too wondered I don't think it's been good. Is it good for a lot of these properties to be all owned under one roof? Like Marvel, whether Marvel movies stronger when each studio had to make their own Marvel movie and was going to coalesce in the Avengers. I think there was more of I think they had to make them as good as they could because this was like their baby. For Universal Studios, Incredible Hulk, that was their movie. That was their piece of the IP. So I think they wanted to make it as good as possible. Same goes for Iron Man and other things. And now that Disney owns it, they just own it. They own it all. And now, what's the big movie that everybody liked? The Marvel movie that everybody liked recently? It was Spider-Man: No Way Home. That's Sony.
Which was Sony. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Sony had to make that maybe in some ways better than what we were getting from Disney with stuff like the Eternals and Shang-Chi.
So it's a give and take, right? So you get a movie that's enjoyable that people like, like Spider-Man: No Way Home. But what it is very detached from the rest of the universe. They've had to come up with this incredible, very complicated multiverse kind of thing in order to kind of separate these things out. So on the one hand, we had this great buildup from multiple different franchises leading into one big shared universe, which was for a while a great juggernaut, right? They just didn't keep it going. right? They had all these plates up spinning, and there wasn't enough talent to keep them spinning. So do you go with, like I used to say about Warner Brothers, keep your peas and carrots from touching on the plate, or do you come up with a really good stew, that one good, awesome meal that everyone likes? I don't know. I mean, how do you mitigate? And I don't know. On the one hand, you could be very conservative and try to be very careful, right? And maybe not take too many chances. And then you end up with kind of what we've been getting from Marvel lately. Or you take big risks and you have the Star Wars of the future, the unnamed franchise that nobody's thought of yet, that ends up being, incredible. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If it's unknown or if it's known, it just has to be as good as it can be. And
Exactly.
That's. And of course, sure, there are exceptions. If I were originally signed on to do just one season of The Mandalorian, so when it became a Disney Plus signature series, he extracted an insane deal to continue with all kinds of bonuses and incentives for writing and directing individual episodes. But I'm betting even Favreau doesn't get a cut of the show's merchandise revenue, meaning Disney likely doesn't share the windfall from kids' many Baby Yoda T-shirts and PJs with the guy who, along with Filoni, actually created the character.
And that may, and I don't know. I don't want to wade too far into things we can only speculate about. But having said that, I am going to speculate.
Yeah, that's what this.
He probably knows that going into it. He's like, well, I'm going to be working for Disney. I'm going to do this to build my own personal capital and my notoriety as a showrunner and creator. I know that I'm going to be making money for them. They will make money off of what I create.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian and Grogu and so forth.
To be fair, that could be a double-edged sword with the merchandising, though, right? Because at the one hand, the creator doesn't get it. But there was a story on one of the Doctor Who DVDs I watched from a Patrick Troughton episode called "The Dominators," where they created these Dominators, these aliens, and these robots. And the idea was the creators wanted to create their own version of the Daleks that they owned and could make money off of.
Basically, because they didn't want to give money to Terry Nation for the Daleks.
Because Terry Nation owned the Daleks, and he's the one getting the money off the Daleks. But then they said it just ended up not pulling through. And I think they complained later on. They were like, and really, out of all the episodes of the Troughton era, this one survives, and not like some of the great Dalek episodes we wrote. The writing team says it was because they wrote a lot of the Dalek episodes for the Troughton era, but they were getting. To be fair, Dominators wasn't a bad episode or anything, but yeah.
No, exactly. But you almost in your mind want to say, yeah, well, we'll just pretend those were the Daleks because that makes a lot more sense. Yeah. But be that as it may, that's exactly. But there's also a certain, and again, I don't know that Favreau is actually having this thought process, but I imagine if I was in his position, I'd say, well, you know what? When George Lucas created Star Wars, he was smart enough to keep the merchandising rights, and nobody wanted them at the time, and he got rich more off the toys than he did, and the lunch boxes and the costumes and the tchotchkes, than the movies themselves, right? But the reality from John's point of view, he didn't create it. He's playing in someone else's sandbox, and he knows that. And who owns it now? Not George. It's Disney. So Disney deserves those merchandising rights if you want to get down to brass tacks and be really intellectually honest about it.
And let's see.
Again, as someone who is not a pixie duster, who isn't, a Disney apologist, I'm just looking at dollars and cents and what's right and wrong,
Let me get back to the last paragraph of what I cut. Disney insists it does pay market value and that it has no trouble recruiting top talents for IP-driven shows. And after all, it would argue it should pay less to creators when the property itself is the star. Maybe, but if Disney really wants to supercharge the output from, say, its branded TV unit, which in this market is kind of needs to do and do it now, it might be worth shelling out to pair more top-level creators with the studio's trove of characters and stories. After all, it's a seller's market these days. As my lawyer friend noted, there's just so much money to be made. The pressure is on Disney to grow, and it just and needs not just the best IP, but the best talent to do that. So we'll see.
But what it comes down to is it's that same dynamic of evolution, or free market, or however you want to look at it. Every company is going to pay as little as they can to get as much as they can, right? So they will pay more for better talent, but not more than they have to.
Yet Disney still has to pay royalties to the Star Wars EU authors. Not if it's 25% different. Actually, I don't know if that's the case.
No, and hold on to that thought there,
we'll
David.
Get to that
we
later.
Will get to that when we get into one of our later articles. Yeah.
All right. So next article is welcome the net to the chat. Like I said, take it easy if you're not feeling so. I mean, whatever. Yeah. I know you say you're retired, so don't.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to her, obviously, because I've been on with you. But if I know her, she's probably going, well, I got to get up because otherwise I won't sleep tonight. It'll be worse tomorrow.
Gotcha.
And
I understand.
That's the way it goes.
Why Disney won't say much about Florida's "Don't Say Gay" bill?
Yeah. Yep. This is a good meaty one. We won't get too into the politics on it, only so far as we have to for this article.
Yeah. So on Friday the 25th, I kept hearing this in the media. I didn't even looked into it. On February 25th, the day of the Florida House of Representatives passed the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill. Former Disney chairman and CEO Bob Iger tweeted his support of President Joe Biden's statement, labeling it a quote-unquote hateful bill. I'm with the president on this, Iger wrote of the legislation, which would ban teachers from discussing LGBTQ topics like sexual orientation or gender identity with students until after the third grade.
Wow, only the third grade.
Yeah, my immediate thought was, are you kidding me? This is they need to be learning about other things maybe in the first through third. Anyway, if passed, this bill will put vulnerable young LGBTQ people in jeopardy. Biden has tweeted his opposition to legislation to the LGBTQI plus. Okay, just beneath Iger's tweet was a comment, "Call your boy Chapek," followed by another more respectful, "I hope you're in conversation with Chapek on this. Talking to the governor would help too." So people are calling Chapek out on Twitter. These suggestions overlook the fact that Iger has exited Disney at the end of December, as well as the reality that his relationship with Chapek has clearly become strained after Iger took the title of chairman emeritus and Chapek became CEO in February 2020. More importantly, Chapek is busy putting his own stamp on the Disney company culture, and clearly he will be less willing to wade into advocacy than Iger. For example, a knowledgeable source says Chapek balked at a proposal to weigh in on voting rights. Chapek is private about his politics, but is believed to be much more conservative than Iger, who was a registered Democrat before becoming an independent in 2016. Chapek is staunchly opposed to bringing Disney into issues he deems irrelevant to the company and its businesses, this person says. Chapek appears to want to handle certain controversial topics through internal dialogue. Latondra Newton, Disney's chief diversity officer, sent a message to staff on Wednesday referencing deeply troubling and heartbreaking developments in the news, noting that Chapek had asked to meet with leaders in our company's LGBTQ plus community to discuss how Disney can best support these important and valued employees and their cast members. She said the company would schedule a March 22nd Reimagine Tomorrow conversation, part of an ongoing program for Disney staff that will be dedicated to issues concerning our LGBTQ plus colleagues, and announced a company-wide Reimagine Tomorrow Global Summit for April 13th. That will be the first gathering of our employees worldwide to discuss our progress and plans for improving diversity, equality, inclusion at Disney, with Chapek participating.
So without getting too into politics of what, we should actually be teaching, third grade and younger about sexuality.
Which may be considered abuse in other situations.
Let's put that aside for the moment, because that's exactly what Bob Chapek is clearly wanting to do here. He's going, look, this is not anything I have any business having an opinion on, and it's nothing that Disney has any position on, right? I mean, and it's not, for all that. Let me back up. as you point out, who the hell gives a crap what Eisner thinks anymore? He's not Iger. Well, him too. I mean, really, people that are no longer involved in Disney, I don't give a crap what they think. And Disney doesn't either. But I'll tell you something, the Disney executives are publicly supporting this stance. So don't just go getting on Bob Chapek about it. Disney corporate, what is it? The chief of corporate affairs, George Morrell, he went on the record. This is an exact quote from him. Whatever Bob's personal politics are, he's not an activist, and he does not bring his partisan agenda to work.
Yep.
He sees himself first and foremost as a custodian of a unifying brand that for nearly a century has been bringing people together, and he is determined that Disney remain a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. He is not coming out for this or against it. So in other words, take your politics and shove them. I am not taking a stance. Disney is not taking a stance, and thereby everyone should feel welcomed. If you have a problem with it, take it elsewhere.
Disney is really not in a position to be getting involved in this stuff. They can't afford, really, in my opinion, to be pissing off anyone on either end of the political spectrum right now.
Yeah.
They need to make money, bottom line. They're still absorbing the 20th Century Fox acquisition, which I'm sure has been chaotic.
This is blowing people's minds in this modern age, but this idea that we are not going to take a stance on something, it's none of our business. We're here to make money. We're here to make entertainment, and what, the state and their politics and what is taught in school, none of our business. Shocker.
Also,
how does this become controversial?
Is it a good idea to maybe anger the governor that was pushing to have everything reopened, and is part of the reason why your parks are still in the shape that they're in?
That might have
like certain other states. Anyway, adds Morrell, he believes the best way we can help create a more inclusive world is through the inspiring content we produce, the welcoming culture we create, and the diverse community organizations we support. Okay, well.
I'll tell you what, we were having some talks about a year and a half ago about how it seems like Disney is putting a lot more focus on Disney World than they are on Disneyland.
Well,
and I wonder why that is. It's business. Just business, people.
Isn't there also Disney Shanghai? I wonder how that's doing these days.
Good question.
Okay, so
I'll tell you one thing. Over there in Disney Shanghai, they're not having questions about LGB issues.
Probably
just
not,
saying.
No. They have a Tron right over there too. Did you know that?
Do they really? That sounds cool.
Apparently it is. Apparently they are building it over here, but I think the pandemic slowed that down. They are going to make a version of it.
I would imagine.
No, Disney Plus didn't pull Anastasia as a statement about Russia's war on Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I guess we have to kind of back up and give some background on this. This was going around in all the social medias. Oh my gosh, Disney is pulling Anastasia, and it's because it's a commentary on Ukraine and blah, 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 blah. And the first thing I do when I see something like that is go, that doesn't sound right, especially after this last article, right? Disney is getting less political. Why would they do this? Well, do a little more digging and kind of engage the brain cells, which is not a common activity these days, and you get a different take on it. Go ahead, Boomer.
As Russia's invasion of Ukraine wages on, Hollywood has taken a strong stance against Vladimir Putin's war. Russian movie theaters will not.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you there?
Yes.
I love how we have no problem calling this a Russian invasion of Ukraine, but nobody says the American invasion of Iraq or the American invasion of Kuwait or whatever. Just saying. Just pointing out some parallels there.
Listen to me. There's all sorts of funny language going on here, which I will call out myself later on. But Russian movie theaters will not be showing many upcoming American films as studios are refusing to show movies such as The Batman in Russia as long as the war continues. Disney has taken as strong of a stance as anyone, vowing not to release any upcoming films in Russia and devoting resources to helping Ukrainian refugees.
Another little asterisk I'd like to put there. How much of that is their choice and how much is, well, legal sanctions? There's nothing we could do. That's like saying, you know what? As long as there's sanctions against Cuba, we are not going to buy cigars from Cuba. Oh, really? Well, that's a big political statement you're making there.
I don't know. I think I had heard something somewhere, but I don't know. Someone had mentioned this to me, but I don't know if this was a rumor that Disney Plus was no longer available in Russia. But I don't know if that was true or any validity of the statement. But I was thinking at the time, I know Putin's a big fan of of the Beatles, and he's not going to get to see that Beatles documentary that's on Disney Plus, right? And I'm thinking, I'm sure he has the integrity not to, sail the high seas for that.
You don't have to. All you got to do is
all you got to
do is use a VPN.
I know. My point is that he wouldn't use unorthodox means.
And you can legally see a show that's streaming in another country. Just saying.
Anyway, let's talk about Anastasia.
Yeah.
So when it was revealed that Anastasia, the 1997 animated film from 20th Century Studios, was 20th Century Fox.
Right.
Let's move on. That Disney acquired when it bought Fox was no longer streaming on Disney Plus. Many suspected that it was an act of protest against Russia. After all, Anastasia is set in Russia and is based on the Russian legend of Grand Duchess Anastasia, a daughter of the Romanov dynasty who was separated from her family by an evil wizard and grows up in an orphanage without knowledge of her royal lineage. However, it looks like Disney's decision to pull Anastasia from Disney Plus was not a bold act of political defiance. The reality is likely a much less exciting example of a standard contract dispute. The film is still streaming on Disney Plus in other countries and is simply unavailable in America, making it more likely that it was pulled due to a dispute over the American streaming rights to the film. The blog whatsondisneyplus.com, who broke the story, wrote that this removal from Disney Plus has nothing to do with the current crisis involving Ukraine and Russia. Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox was an extremely complicated deal that involved many films and shows that were co-produced with other studios. So this likely will not be the last time a film is pulled from the service due to a pre-existing contract. So this sort of reminded me of what we were talking about with Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong, how they were also financed by another studio with Warner Brothers, and that's why they're getting all in a tizzy about the day and date. And is this another one? Like, are Don Bluth Studios, were they the studio that had co-financed it, and maybe they don't want it on Disney Plus, or is it something else? I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's lots of that kind of stuff, and I mean, really, that stuff is a little bit more closer to the situation. That I think it's really tenuous to suggest this has anything to do with Russia. But I will say, as much as I clearly from our opening segment, I love Don Bluth and I love his animation. Not at all a big fan of Anastasia. Do not have it in my collection. And the whole story, I think, is absolutely ludicrous for the same reason that, we don't own the movie Titanic, for the same reason we don't own the movie Pearl Harbor. I have real issues with fictionalized depictions of history that actually get history wrong. And that movie Anastasia is kind of offensive to me, to be honest with you.
I've never seen it. I know it was a big deal when it came out. I guess they were treating it like a Disney fairy tale movie, right?
Yeah,
is that what...
yeah, they did. And the fact is, Anastasia and Rasputin and what these are real historical people, and to fictionalize and fancify them the way they do is so I kind of offensive to me. I mean, will you indulge me for a second? Let's get into some real history. Okay, so and yes, I'm actually reading something, but I put this together myself. Civil War broke out in Russia in June 1918. And in July, the anti-Bolshevik white Russian forces and that's white in quotes, not white in color. Okay, forces advanced on Yekaterinburg, where Nicholas and his family were located during a campaign against the Bolshevik forces. Local authorities were ordered to prevent a rescue of the Romanovs, and after a secret meeting in the Yekaterinburg of the Yekaterinburg Soviet, a death sentence was passed on the imperial family. Late on the night of July 16th, Nicholas, Alexandra, their 5 children, and 4 servants were ordered to dress quickly and go down to the cellar of the house in which they were being held. There, the family and servants were arranged in 2 rows for a photograph they were told was being taken to quell rumors that they had escaped. Suddenly, a dozen armed men burst into the room and gunned down the imperial family in a hail of gunfire. Those who were still breathing when the smoke cleared were stabbed to death. The remains of Nicholas, Alexandra, and 3 of their children were excavated in a forest near Yekaterinburg in 1991 and positively identified 2 years later using DNA tests. The Crown Prince Alexei and 1 Romanov daughter were not accounted for, fueling the persistent legend that Anastasia, the youngest Romanov daughter, had survived the execution of her family. Of the several Anastasias that surfaced in Europe in the decades after the Russian Revolution, all were debunked. The memoirs of the chief executioner were found, reporting that the bodies had been separated so the enemy forces couldn't confirm that they'd been found. And in August 2007, Russian archaeologists found a bonfire site that matched the executioner's description, along with 2 partial skeletons. In several DNA testing labs around the world, it was confirmed that the remains belonged to Alexei and 1 of the female siblings, and it cannot be confirmed if it was Anastasia or Maria. However, 7 Romanov bodies were missing, and 7 Romanov bodies have been identified. Anastasia was killed with the rest of her family. We just don't know if her body was buried with her parents or with her brother. Just a little science here. There is some questions when it comes to specifying females of the same generation. So that's why we don't know if at any given time we're looking at the body of Anastasia or Maria. But the fact is, both died. Both bodies are accounted for. We just don't know which one was buried in which plot. Anastasia died with her family during the Bolshevik Revolution. End of story. There is no Anastasia fairy tale. There is no, Anastasia survived in a hat and coat, hiding away somewhere. Didn't happen, folks. Just want to point that out to you. Learn a little something. The more you know.
Autodratus question for you. How do you feel about Gladiator? I like the movie, but if I recall correctly, it did not follow the real set of events, Marcus Aurelius and Commodus.
If you go into it with, hey, this is a fictional history kind of thing, it's kind of a good movie. But yeah, no, I do not care for the depiction of Marcus Aurelius. The whole sister thing's a little not quite there, and yeah, no, I don't care too much for it. I also don't like The Patriot, by the way, if you want to get right down to brass tacks.
The Patriot, I remember that with Mel Gibson and the extra evil Brits.
Last of the Mohicans, not a big fan there either. There's a lot of movies that I just really don't care for. I understand people's love of them. Dances with Wolves, not a big fan, but Man Called Horse, yeah, that one I kind of dig. Gettysburg, Gods and Generals, I like those movies. Those are probably the best, film versions of the Civil War. 1776. Yeah, it is what it is. But John Adams, pretty good. Anyway, I'm sorry I've gotten way off topic there, but I was addressing, the
yeah. Auto Dread mentions Tombstone. I think I recall you thinking that wasn't too bad, actually, as far as
it wasn't. It was an interesting. Most of the fictionalized things were the kind of truncation, taking a long span of time, bringing it down to 2 hours. But there were things in it where I go, holy crap, they actually put that in there? That's a really obscure historical event. You know what I mean? It's like, wow.
Yeah, I think I have issue with what do you call it? What was that movie, The Robe? Remember that classical biblical epic? Because I think they make Caligula the bad guy. I think they make Caligula the bad guy, and this is like right after like the death of Christ. And I'm thinking, I don't know how this is before he's emperor too, where he's just I forget what he was, but the Christians weren't on Caligula's radar, especially not before he became emperor. I'm sorry, you're reaching here.
Yeah,
with
Caligula.
Nero, maybe. Yeah, Nero, you can make the argument.
The fact is, Caligula didn't give a flying F about the Christians or much other
or anybody.
They were all screwing around, getting drunk, partying.
And murdering people.
He did some pretty whacked out stuff. I mean, you want to be honest? That Penthouse movie about Caligula actually got more things right than you might think. Just saying. Yeah. Very weird stuff there. Did you see what I did there? I'm not on my own channel.
Whatever. Anyway, what was I going to say though? I think it was Pensick made a point about there's ride through videos on YouTube about the Tron ride.
I did thank him for that. I'll check that out later. I'm actually not surprised.
You know what? You should look at ride through videos of Disney rides around the world.
Honestly,
it's rather fascinating what they do in other parks. I pulled down
a video for the Terminator ride. Just so that I could put it on a DVD and put it into my collection of Terminator films, because it kind of works really well with the Terminator, span of movies.
I thought it was a decent, that was a cool ride.
I actually wish I had, and it's really because I haven't looked for it, kind of wish I had that kind of footage of the Ghostbusters ride. That's actually from Universal, I think. I don't think that's Disney.
Yeah.
Is it? Anyway,
what's Disney?
The Ghostbuster ride?
No.
I'm pretty sure that was a Universal.
Yeah. Universal had all the cool stuff.
I saw that. I was sitting right in the front row. That bit where they get the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and the front rows get blasted with marshmallow. I was in the front row for that. That was really kind of neat.
It's way been they so did, long,
peek behind the curtain, the way they did that. Of course, I didn't get blasted with marshmallow fluff. What you're actually getting hit with is a burst of CO2 that comes out like white smoke. And let me tell you something. When you're down in Florida in the middle of summer, getting blasted with a CO2 hit, kind of nice. Kind of nice. I was hot and sweaty, and I blasted with cold air, and it was really, really cool.
I love those parks. To be fair, Universal's still good, but they're a lot more crowded than they used to be because everybody wants to go to those parks
because now. Everyone wants to go to Universal, not so much Disney, although Disney is starting to come back a bit.
Universal did the thing where they split kind of the Harry Potter thing into two. One part of it's in the regular park, the other part's in the other park, and you can get a combined pass and like ride the Hogwarts Express back and forth.
Got to say that I hear a lot of people, and I can't speak from experience because I haven't seen Galaxy's Edge, and I haven't seen the Harry Potter experience at Universal.
I've been to Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm. But people are comparing those two experiences and saying the whole immersive thing for Harry Potter, totally worth it. The immersive experience for Galaxy's Edge, not really so much.
The immersion was so good for the Harry Potter land and the Universal that they used one of the sets, I think, indoors to shoot scenes for one of the Harry Potter movies.
That
And
actually
one thing,
doesn't
yeah.
surprise me. In fact, that is, well, there's actually a lot of stories like this that I've heard about Universal Studios. I mean, the Psycho and whatnot, and their thing there, and the Jaws ride, and just
Yeah.
little bits of things where little scenes were just, you know what, let's just take a shot from the studio. And that was actually the thinking behind Universal. It's like, look, if we're going to have a franchise that's going to have multiple films, let's use this as our, in quotes, back lot, right? It doesn't always work out. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices for what you thought you would do for a movie because you have turned it into a experience ride, whatever, for the park. But yeah, that big house up on the hill, if we just need a shot of it, let's just get that and not have to build a whole nother one for, Psycho 5 or whatever. I don't know. Just talking off the top of my head.
I wonder if they used the outside shot when they redid when they did the Vince Vaughn remake. I should look that up. Maybe they did use one of the newer houses or the original house. The Ghostbusters ride was more of a show, from what I remember, but a lot of fun. It was at Universal Studios. Remember the Zool puppets? Yeah, well, they would have these cool little shows that you would sit down. And I remember one they were going over, it was like horror makeup effects was one of them, and they, of course, Universal Monsters. They talked about that, and they had to the guy showed a scene from a brief scene from Creepshow, the part where the cockroaches come out. Now, are any of you afraid of bugs here? And he shows the scene of E.G. Marshall, and then the one insect comes out, and he stops it right there, and I can tell the people in the crowd that had never seen Creepshow, and they all go, "Ah!" They screamed at that scene, but they didn't show anything too gross, obviously, because it's a public park. But it's
remind me after the show. There's something I wanted to address with you about Creepshow. Just remind me about that, okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah. After the show,
yeah.
So you don't want to say it on the air.
Just no. It's a personal thing that.
Okay.
Just remind me, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
But
the Jurassic Park ride is still my favorite. I would like to do this Jurassic World ride as well. Yeah, we did a story on that on the show a while back. The Jurassic World ride. I heard it's really neat. The coaster one, the Velocicoaster, I think it's called. What I liked about the Jurassic Park ride, I was on it with my dad, and we were. I think there was a father and son behind us, right? And the kid just lost it at one point in the ride and was just screaming, right? Yeah. And then he was crying. He was crying, right?
Sure.
And then his dad said, "What were you scared of? The Velociraptor or the T-Rex?" And he said, "All of them." It's because you have the animatronic T-Rex and Velociraptor on the ride. That was a lot of fun. See, we can think of the good old days. Actually, I don't want to pick on Universal because I still think they know how to run a theme park, so I'm not picking on them. It's been a while since I've been over there, though, but I'm waiting for that Super Nintendo land. That might drag me back there, I'll tell you that. Star Wars Eclipse release date at least 5 years away, according to new report. Yeah. What?
Did say we were going to get into this, but I'm counting on you because, again, this is the gamey thing.
I don't think I know a ton about this game, but I'll see what I can do.
But you know something about the company, right?
A little bit, but okay. The trailer for Quantic Dream's Star Wars Eclipse blew fans away at the Game Awards 2021, with many expressing excitement to play a narrative-driven Star Wars game from the studio behind Heavy Rain. Since then, it has become apparent that Star Wars Eclipse was announced way ahead of its potential release date. Now, a new report has provided more clarification, indicating that fans may be waiting at least 5 years to play the game. This report comes from X-Fire, written by leaker Tom Henderson, who previously leaked Star Wars Eclipse ahead of its Game Awards reveal. According to Henderson, part of the reason why Quantic Dream announced Star Wars Eclipse so early was an attempt to attract developers to its studio, as it's found it difficult to get talent to work on the game. As pointed out in Henderson's report, Quantic Dream has been accused of mistreating its workers and cultivating a toxic work environment, which is like playing a role in the studio's apparent inability to hire new talent. They got into trouble in France because I think they're based in France, and I think there was an investigation. They found all sorts of things like it just sounded like a bad environment. I don't know if there was the sexual harassment or if it was just normal abuse. But Henderson's report includes evidence that Quantic Dream job listings have been regularly updated to make it seem like they were posted more recently, perhaps as a way to avoid looking like it is finding it difficult to fill the roles. In the meantime, Henderson also offers another possibility for why Star Wars Eclipse trailer was dropped so early, despite the game apparently being a minimum of 5 years away. Henderson cites a source that says that this was done as an attempt by Quantic Dream to attract potential buyers. Microsoft and Sony are both purchasing studios in an attempt to bolster. What?
I said shocker there. Oh, it's kind of like all the other articles we've talked about in the past, like, announcements about a new Star Trek movie that never comes to pass. And now we're on our fourth or fifth mention of, we're definitely doing Star Trek 4 with the JJ cast, and the JJ cast comes out and goes, we had no idea. We haven't even been approached yet.
Okay. This is interesting. Microsoft and Sony are both purchasing studios in an attempt to bolster live exclusives. If the information from Henderson's story is accurate, it would seem that Quantic Dream wants to be one of them. For all I know, they were trying to generate hype for a Star Wars game that is not being made. This is what this is sounding like to me. That is in very early production that may never come to pass. But heck, if we can get Sony or Microsoft to buy us, then it's off our hands and we can just make a ton of money.
And what's funny is they had that
what
video.
Do they own?
I have no idea.
They made Beyond Two Souls, which Sony published, I believe, but I don't know if they own that. That had the actor now known as Elliot Page in it, back when the actor was Ellen Page, as like a scanner type, like a psychic person, and her misadventures. And then they had Heavy Rain, which, as I mentioned to you before the stream, how Marcus Beerhead from Game Trailers said that the Twilight books were better written.
And I'll just not that I'm getting political, I'm actually setting us up for another article, but Elliot Page talking about the roles that he or she is playing and whether or not that's going to impact because we can't have a man play a woman or a woman play a man if they're not transgendered or whatever. We will be digging into that in another article we got coming up shortly. But I do want to point out that this I think we even talked about this on the show, that Star Wars Eclipse game had this like footage coming out that all the fans were just so excited about. It
had a trailer of a CG cutscene, most likely. I haven't seen it.
And I had
that's not footage.
And I basically said that at the time. I said, if anything, this is footage of cutscenes. This isn't what the gameplay is going to look like. Now we come to find out there is no gameplay because it hasn't been created yet. This isn't even cutscenes. This is, created marketing for an imagined thing that doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah. Oh, Quantic Dream games are basically interactive entertainment. They're like these adventure games with LucasArts. Yeah, I was explaining that to Troy before the stream. That they're sort of like a more modern version of those types of point-click adventure games. They emphasize more story instead of gameplay. Yeah, I remember David Cage being interviewed. He's like, well, what's the object? Who do you kill in the game? Well, you don't kill in the game. And he was just sounding like a pompous ass at the time. And I'm like, the kind of games I like, right? I like the games where I have a gun and go around shooting things from hell dimensions or whatever. That's more my wheelhouse. I don't want story.
All the story you need is bad monster coming, me gotta kill it.
Listen to me. If I want story, I'll buy a Japanese game or I'll read a book. I for the American games, you can just have me killing things and I'm happy. David Cage.
I do want to, because I do enjoy those, in quotes, games that have a very immersive story, but I say games in inverted quotes because it's less a game and more an interactive story.
Well, here's what I want to say.
I know that, and I'm fine with that.
About those old point and click adventure games. Like I didn't play too many of the LucasArts games, but I played a lot of those Sierra titles, and you had to do a lot of thinking. Those were games. Your character could get killed in them if you did the wrong thing. It was like puzzle solving. So
Yeah.
I still consider those games, not just like an interactive movie. But
well, am I correct that this? And somebody who knows more about these games and companies than I do, wasn't this company involved somehow in that Detroit Become Human game?
Yes, that was their last game that came out.
Very.
Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've actually watched a bunch of playthroughs of it on what do you call it? Again, because I wasn't interested in the gameplay. I was interested in the interactive story, and there's like a bunch of different stories depending on what character you focus on and decisions you make that come out of it. But it also became very clear to me that these were a little bit, well, actually a lot bit divisive stories because they were kind of preachy. But the graphics were great. I don't know what the gameplay was like. Didn't matter to me because, like I said, I was paying attention to the story. I did want to note too that, and I don't think she would mind me bringing this up. Stephanie Janicek, friend of the channel, and regular contributor. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and just drop her channel here. She did make a comment about this company, saying this company is notorious for bad business, and this delay says Disney's probably going to end up canceling this. And not necessarily just because of the delay, but by the time this actually does get made based on what this article is saying, for crying out loud, it's going to be outdated as far as storyline for Star Wars.
It could be. Apparently, the head of the company had a 3D model of Ellen Page for a deleted sequence in Beyond Two Souls. Okay.
Yep. And is that the one that I heard about where Ellen Page's character in the game is taking a shower and you're not supposed to see it? But
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think
if
that
you
was
get
the
into the graphics of the game, you could see they put in a lot more detail than they needed to. If
maybe people were able to hack it or something, or I don't know. You're playing Indigo Prophecy. I think that was their first game, right? No, I never have. That was my first time playing the games. It was strange, it was sort of fun. Had a supernatural sci-fi hero story. It went off the rails. I only have two of their games, but I've never really got into them. I have the Beyond Two Souls and I have the Heavy Rain. You have to understand the games, especially back then, they would get super cheap, and I would just buy whatever had any kind of a good reputation. But
like I also got to note that this, when I was first looking into this a while back, was really starting to look like this story was focused in that High Republic era that honestly I think is on its way out.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It's gonna be removed from canon and is not going to happen. Another reason why I think Stephanie suspects that it's going to be not ever happening. But in a side note, and this is not something we usually talk about because Twitter is not the real world and it is not news, but sometimes it's funny to see what people are saying on there. Bespin Bulletin had tweeted out Star Wars Eclipse is looking to release in 2027 or 2028, reportedly still struggling to hire staff. And I said, I got to say, the reactions I'm seeing on this are hysterical. And one person says, oh no, what will we ever do? This video game based on a failed comic series that no one knew was being made was going to save the world. I mean, the galaxy. And then there's a picture of some woman in a movie swooning. Oh, this news is just too overwhelming.
Oh, funny.
And there's a lot of stuff.
I have the vapors.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. Actually, I need to say that in a southern accent. Anyway, well,
you say it that way. I say, "Oh, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that this game about the High Republic isn't happening." Oh, how will I ever cope?
Well, who knows what it was? They could have pitched this High Republic when they thought it was going to be a thing, though. But oh no, this is like Old Republic.
The Old Republic, maybe.
Oh, we don't have rights to that. Darn it. Okay. Yeah, anyway,
exactly.
While fans may be waiting years to play Quantic Dream Star Wars Eclipse, there should be plenty of other Star Wars game projects released in the interim, including Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, the open world.
I've been told that these Lego games are actually really, really good. I don't know, so maybe that is
my issue with the Lego games is, for me, they become samey after a while.
Oh, okay.
I did have a few of them back in the day, though. The open world Star Wars game from Ubisoft, and the others are also in the works. So, okay. So, yeah, apparently Ubisoft. Is Lucasfilm just giving this license to whoever wants to make a game instead of just leaving it with one company now? I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
Like,
You'd know the game stuff better than I would.
No, I don't. I don't really, because none of this is making sense. Because in the old days, for instance, the James Bond license, it would be held by one company at a time.
Yeah.
Briefly, it was Nintendo, but then they lost out for the other Pierce Brosnan movies to Electronic Arts, and then Activision took over after Electronic Arts. I don't know who has the Bond gaming license now. Probably nobody, because nobody cares
Yeah,
anymore. But
probably.
in the old days, it would be one company. And actually, in the old days with Star Wars, Lucasfilm would develop the games, and maybe somebody else would publish them. I know that Nintendo, I believe, published or no, maybe Lucasfilm published them themselves. That's right. I think Nintendo paid to have Lucasfilm make exclusive games on their platform. So while the Xbox might get a High Republic game that takes place in the old days, like the GameCube would get like Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which was a vehicle-based Star Wars game set in the original trilogy. So like so that might be what used to happen. Maybe Lucasfilm used to be contracted to make games, but they would end up exclusives on certain platforms. Do you understand? So,
yeah, and I do have to point out that just like the comics and just like the books, none of it's canon. So don't worry too much about it. It never can be, even if they're saying it's canon, they can't and they won't, because only a small percentage of their fans are playing these games and even know who these characters are. And unless they make it to the big screen, they're not canon.
And he says Respawn will be doing the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. Give me 1 sec. Is Respawn owned by EA? Titanfall, yes. Okay, Apex Legends. So yeah. So apparently EA still has the rights to make sequels to the Star Wars games they've already worked on. So this is a bit of a mess. But instead of Lucas making the games themselves and other companies publishing them, now it's
you had
just giving the license to
everybody
wants.
You said that when they kind of dissolved LucasArts. So
it's just very confusing to me, because that's not. I'll put it to you this way: that's not typically the way these movie license have these license. Like I said, with the Bond license. Actually, no, I stand corrected. Oh, the history of gaming license and IPs is very confusing. For instance, Batman the Animated Series. Konami would buy the rights to make games based on it for Nintendo systems, such as Game Boy, Super Nintendo, and Super Nintendo, whereas Sega would make the games based on Batman the Animated Series on the Genesis console. Sega would make their own games based on that same property. Sometimes a company would buy the rights to a property and release the same thing on both. So yeah, it could be either way. You're right. If I'm talking about history of gaming, I just know that with that Bond license, that would always get secured by one person. So I'm confused. Let's move on.
No,
here's the big one, the big news story of the night that everybody's excited about. You excited, huh? You excited?
I'm a bit,
you'd better be.
I'll be more excited when I actually see it happening, but it is intriguing, yeah.
Okay, so we'll see if this is even going to happen. But I would argue, why did they bother bringing Thrawn into the current Disney Star Wars if they weren't going to use him in some capacity? So I don't know.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and say the story. Okay, Heir to the Empire in development. Heir to the Empire in development to be Disney Plus first Star Wars film. What? That's my enthused explanation point. What's going on here? Okay. An adaptation of Heir to the Empire could be Disney Plus's first Star Wars film. Now, the writer does say could. Sources reveal Heir to the Empire is the climax to several Star Wars series, including The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. On December 25th, 2020, I scooped The Mandalorian concludes with Heir to the Empire. However, at that time, insiders were unsure if Lucasfilm planned a theatrical movie or a television series. They now claim it's a Disney Plus movie. The Mandalorian kicked off a new future for Star Wars fans. In fact, it saved the franchise. After all, The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker polarized followers. It did? Well, that might be an understatement. Okay, he makes a joke with that. Even the most hardcore loyalists grasp at defending them. Furthermore, The Mandalorian won over new viewers. Its Western grit and Baby Yoda appeal converted many. The upcoming Ahsoka will serve as a sequel to the animated Star Wars Rebels. In addition, its spin-off to The Mandalorian, Ahsoka Tano, Rosario Dawson, herself debuted on The Mandalorian. With Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabrina Wren, the puzzle pieces are fitting together. But it was Sabine, anyway, are fitting together.
Just a Mandalorian character who was potentially a contender to lead the Mandalorians.
Yes, I remember. Well, I saw the show. They call her Sabrina in this article.
Oh,
it was Sabine.
They
autocorrect.
It was probably an
got it.
autocorrect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Disney Plus is forming a live-action Star Wars Rebels. It's a familiar strategy. Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige patented it for the Avengers. In other words, the shows are part of the big picture that is slowly falling into place. The last few Star Wars films performed below expectations, thus Disney is somewhat nervous about another cinematic feature. As a result, some argue that Disney grounded Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron. I doubt it. I still believe Disney will proceed with Rogue Squadron. Beyond that, it's slim pickings thus far. Sources indicate Lucasfilm sees Disney Plus as a home for less mainstream Star Wars movies. For example, Solo Star Wars movie tanked at the box office. It would have been a success on Disney Plus. Well, that's his opinion. Yeah. For now, live action programs set after the original trilogy will lead to Heir to the Empire. Timothy Zahn wrote Heir to the Empire novel 1991. It's a non-canon book set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Furthermore, it's the first installment of the Thrawn trilogy. Legendary Star Wars villain Grand Admiral Thrawn debuted in Heir to the Empire. We have seen him on Rebels. He was the main villain for like the last two seasons of that show.
Yep.
I'm assuming they're planning to use him in some form. I don't know if that means they're going to be directly adapting the novel, or if they're going to be taking elements from the novel, or just I don't know.
Well, I can speak to that pretty definitively, just based on what's already happened. So you have some people out there going, well, they can't adapt the novels exactly because
they're too long, right?
Well, there is that element. And you know what? It's like I've always said about the EU. For all the people out there that think the EU is perfect and can do no wrong, there is a lot of stuff in the EU that conflicts and counteracts itself. Some would argue that some of it conflicts with what ended up coming out in the prequels, because some of this is from before the prequels and so forth.
Right.
And purists who want Heir to the Empire to be exactly the way it was in the book point out that, well, because Thrawn has already been introduced in Rebels and so forth, and his story is already at least slightly different, and it can only be more different. And then they go off on the, actually, that nerds do,
yes.
Talking about how the cloning is different in Heir to the Empire than it is in the prequels, and it's not compatible. And so you got two different technologies. So what? Get over it. But the fact is, it's just like everything else that Jon Favreau has done. He doesn't take, a whole thing, whole cloth, and say all of this is now canon. He says, well, no, Black Chrysanthemum is canon because I introduced him. That doesn't mean all of his stories in the comics are. That doesn't mean that Dr. Aphra is canon either, just because she was affiliated with him. Stuff like that. He will take what looks like it works with the narrative he wants to tell, and he'll make that movie, Here's what's interesting. You also have these people saying, well, they can't do Heir to the Empire because it's not compatible with the sequel trilogy. Or even if they do Heir to the Empire, all roads lead to the sequel trilogy. I don't know definitively if that's true or not. All I can say is, as they add more and more characters like Mando, Grogu, Thrawn, whoever else they start adding, where are all these characters in the sequel trilogy? They all have to just suddenly disappear and die in order for it gets much harder and harder to actually get to that point. you know? So yes, if indeed this heir to the empire rumor comes to pass, and people have been talking about this for a while, but it's all been kind of a pipe dream. This is the closest thing we've gotten to this is a pretty plausible rumor.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
If they are adapting this, do they have to pay royalties to Timothy Zahn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
But they may only have to worry about paying this one author royalties and nobody else that wrote for the EU, correct? If they just stick with those 3 novels.
They have had other recent lawsuits that I think have them going, you know what? Maybe we need to just pay up front and not have to waste a bunch of money on court and then pay up. Maybe the money people have started to figure that out.
I don't know how I feel about these as movies that are strictly on the streaming platform. Are these going to be budget-wise comparable to what we saw on the big screen, or are these going to be smaller budgeted movies that maybe using the technology they've used on The Mandalorian to make things look... I mean, how expensive was The Mandalorian to make? I imagine it's not a cheap series, even though they...
Yeah, but much less than you would think based on the special effects we got, because they've found a very budget-friendly way to come up with it. Here's what I'll say. Just like we don't know for sure this is even happening, we don't know for sure that this is how they go with it. If they decide to start rocking and rolling with this thing and it really starts to pick up steam, and I suspect that this whole rumor has been put out there just to see if the fans are excited about it. And if the fans get excited about it and they want it, then maybe they go, you know what? Maybe this isn't even a streaming thing. Maybe we do make this our next, feature film or something like that.
I know that how they had laid it out in Rebels, they were probably planning to bring Thrawn back at some point in some capacity, because why bother even having him on Rebels to begin with? And Rebels is part of the quote-unquote new Disney canon, which is confusing to me anyway, because I don't even know if Solo, a Star Wars story, is still considered part of the current canon, considering how unwell that was received. True. They don't talk about that movie too often.
You brought it up, and so now has David. I want to address this. That 25% different thing, that doesn't work here. Okay, it doesn't, because
actually
the difference, this whole concept, the 25% different, was branding. In other words, it was a way to say J.J. Abrams is coming in and making a Star Trek that is not in canon with anything that came before it. So this branding, these characters, these likenesses, these uniforms, these are his, and he gets the marketing for it. Okay. And that is kind of what they tried to do a little bit with the sequel trilogy, where yes, we own Star Wars, but we still have to pay Lucas because, merchandising and this and that. But we don't have to pay him merchandising for Rose Tico. We only have to pay him for Han Solo. So we kill off Han Solo. We flood the market with Rose Ticos that nobody fucking buys.
This is something that they said they were going to do. I still... Here, this is what they've always said about that they're introducing the new characters and killing off the old characters, so all the kids. Maybe that was part of the decision making. I don't know, because if that's the case, it just would have made more sense just to set the movie 1,000 years later and have it be just placed in the Star Wars universe with new characters.
Oh yeah, that would have gone over real well with fans who come in wanting.
Well, I think it would have been better. I think it would have gone over better than having their characters they cared about desecrated like they were in that original trilogy.
Yeah, desecrated.
It wouldn't have hurt. It wouldn't.
It's levels of bad is what we're really talking here. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is, look, if they completely rework the story, that's not what they're paying Timothy Zahn for. They may, I don't know. It depends on whether or not they give him a writing credit. The important thing is it's characters created by Timothy Zahn. So they're going to be using Admiral Thrawn. Absolutely no doubt.
So they already have to pay him for that regardless, right?
Exactly. They already are. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't use Captain Paleon, right? I don't know if they'll use Joruus C'baoth or if they'll use some other Jedi. That actually might work really well with what they've got developed here. We'll see. But it's the characters that they use that they have to pay him for, or at least give him credit for. And it's going to be really hard for them to get away with not doing that, since Timothy Zahn's work is so well known among the fans, and the fans will be the first ones to point it out.
Probably if they introduce Mara Jade, it'll be a different version of the character. I was thinking having Rosa Salazar play her so they could put a CG mask over her like the way they did with Luke with the deep fake. I'm kidding, because she's used. Never mind, it's a joke.
I wouldn't mind them casting Rosa Salazar as
no. My joke about that was like she.
Oh, I dig what you're saying.
What they would actually,
what they'd actually have to do is CG and red hair. She's got to be a redhead, but no, I'd be okay with it being Rosa Salazar. I get Rosa Salazar in there any way that you can. You know, hell, recast Cara Dune as Rosa Salazar. I'll be happy.
Talon Card will be curious as that Zahn's character insert. Oh, well, yeah. I don't know. I know that Zahn is. I mean, he did write a Thrawn book that I believe was set in the current Disney. At least it wasn't set in the EU. It was set in whatever Disney had made. See, it's very confusing because I think. No, hopefully someone over there has a plan, because I think part of the problem with the sequel trilogy, there was no plan, and that's why
you don't have to worry about it at all. It's really simple. When it comes to books, they are all EU until they are canonized on film. Honestly, it regardless of what anyone ever says, including the IP holders, that's the way it works out over and over and over again.
I have to say though, if this gets announced, it's going to be the EU fans are going to flip out. Some are going to be for it, and some are going to be furious, and it's going to be fascinating to see.
Well,
because this is like the last thing they have that they can call. I guess that they can. If
I can quote my most quotable favorite guru that I like to go back to, Kamran Pasha, on this topic, he said, "If this is actually true, then like Admiral Dalla's Star Destroyer Hydra, the black pills are about to get sucked into a black hole of rage and confusion as Star Wars is reborn the way it always should have been. Stay tuned."
Well, we'll wait and see. I'll be very curious to see if this happens. I mean, I had imagined these series are supposed to be leading somewhere, right? I guess we'll find out probably more by the end of the season 3 of The Mandalorian when that happens, but...
You know, if I understand Favreau's writing style the way I think he does, the way I think I do, he is only thinking a certain distance ahead, and he's just seeing where the journey takes him. He's telling a story, making it up as he goes. You know, he's got arcs that he's got planned, and he's sowing seeds for them. And whatever germinates, and that's how he goes. He knows what he's doing. He's actually a talented writer.
Do you think
that's something we don't see enough in entertainment these days?
Do you think Thrawn could play into the Kenobi series at all? You don't know?
Well, he could, because I think
on Rebels he had already been reestablished, because they had already said they knew who he was, like he was an established.
Yeah, so he's around in that period, so that he could, but it would kind of be. See, this is the problem with the whole Kenobi thing. You're again rewinding and backing up to tell a story, and that's Star Wars hasn't had really good luck with that, and the biggest problem is where these characters end up, so stop doing it. Right?
Yeah, that was a problem for Solo, right?
We know that Ben is not going to get killed because we know when he dies. We saw it happen, right?
Yeah.
We know Luke and Leia aren't going to die because we know where they, come up and so forth.
I always suspected the Kenobi movie they were working on was supposed to actually be a follow-up to Solo. Like stuff they had introduced in Solo was going to play out in the Kenobi movie, like with Darth Maul being back and all this other stuff.
Oh, God, I hope not. I don't want any
So
more Darth
I don't
Maul.
know. This is where I want to know. Basically, is Solo still canon? Because that'll be.
I
That's
also
where
want. I want to see them overwrite. See, that's the thing I'm afraid of. You know, we're concerned that we're concerned about Talon Card and whatnot. I've even heard people saying, "I want to see Zizor come back." Yeah, I'd like to see Zizor come back and take over take over the role that Darth Maul had been in the Rebels. You know. Although I think all of those storylines lend themselves better to Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett. Give us a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett and focus on, the underworld of the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Like I said, they did kind of play into that in the Solo movie. That was like an underworld Star Wars movie, but like you said, it wasn't necessarily well received, right? Dash Rendar for me.
I was just thinking that, yeah, but really, here's the problem with Dash Rendar. Dash Rendar was literally a Han Solo
Oh,
stand-in.
please.
He was
That was
literally there because Han Solo couldn't be.
That was my first one of my first games for my Nintendo 64 was Shadows of the Empire. That was the big exclusive. Again, a game
I
that
went
Nintendo
crazy
told.
for that because that's when they started bringing back Star Wars toys. I got the Dash Rendar toy. I got all those
Yeah.
big buff Luke Skywalker and
Because I know there
King
was
Kong sized Chewbacca and stuff.
there were the games. There was the book too. They based on that too, right? I think
Right,
maybe
Shadows
even
of
a
the Empire.
graphic
Yeah,
novel. Yeah.
it was a brilliant multimedia idea for Star Wars, and honestly, it kept Star Wars alive during that time where there were no movies.
Mm-hmm.
So
Han Solo knockoff, but it worked for me. Yeah, like I said, I had the game on the Nintendo 64 back in the day. So
what I did not have, and looking back, I'm not too sad that I didn't. Dash Rendar's Outrider was one of the toys that came out, but it was way, way, way undersized. It was more like the size of a fighter craft than it was a freighter. So it was like, yeah, I understood what they were trying to do. They were trying to keep the price down. They were trying to get as many people playing with it as possible. But I'm like, no, you know.
and Shizor, right?
Shizor. I guess that's really. I said Zizor, but I guess it was Shizor.
Could have been. I don't know. That's how you pronounce it. It could be the other way. Tell you what, they'll have to bring Shadow of the Empire back into the canon, right? I don't know.
That's one of those ones that I can take or leave. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't great. It was really all about marketing. The story.
Yeah.
The story was weak. It was a lot like a lot of the stories in the Marvel Comics era. It's like they're trying to fill in story of what these characters did in between Empire and Jedi. And it's like, again, we know where it's leading up to, so why do we need to know all this detail? But that's okay. We'll just do a bunch of nothing,
The Outrider was a YTE 2400
Yep.
Corellian light freighter. Yep. Sleeker than the Millennium Falcon.
It was meant to be smaller than the Falcon, but because the Falcon as a toy was already undersized, they ended up making the Outrider even smaller still, and it comes out about the size of an X-Wing. I'm like, yeah, how the frick much freight is that ship supposed to carry?
A lot. I don't know. Well, I guess not a lot because it's
right. Yeah, it carries. I can deliver one droid to you.
Hey, sometimes one droid's all you need, right?
Yeah.
AMC charging more for the Batman tickets, just like Spielberg and Lucas predicted 9 years ago.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this story, huh? You gonna pay more?
On the one hand, I was like, wait, really? And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
AMC Theaters CEO Adam Iron dropped a bombshell this week by announcing the exhibition chain will charge more for tickets to The Batman as part of a variable pricing experiment. Tickets to the Robert Pattinson starring comic book tentpole will be slightly higher than the prices for other movies playing in the same theaters at the same time, Aaron said during an AMC earnings call. According to Entertainment Weekly, AMC is charging an extra $1.50 on adult tickets to The Batman in Los Angeles. This is all quite novel in the United States, but actually, AMC has been doing it for years in our European theaters, Aaron said. Indeed, in Europe, we charge a premium for the best seats in the house, as do just about all other sellers of tickets in other industries. Think sports events, concerts, and live theater, for example.
Yeah.
While The Batman marks AMC Theater's first notable use of variable pricing in the United States, it's a concept many blockbuster directors have been predicting for nearly a decade. Speaking at a 2013 panel at the University of Southern California, George Lucas shared his belief that moviegoing would eventually resemble Broadway or sporting events and that theaters would have different price tiers for different kinds of films. What you're going to end up with is fewer theaters, Lucas said in 2013, bigger theaters with a lot of nice things. Going to the movies is going to cost you $50, maybe 100, maybe 150, and that's going to be what we call the movie business. But everything else is going to look more like cable television on TiVo. Lucas was joined on the 2013 panel by Steven Spielberg, who added, there's going to be an implosion where 3 or 4 or maybe even half of a dozen of these mega budgeted movies are going to go crashing into the ground, and that's going to change the paradigm again. There's going to be eventually day and date with movies, and eventually there's going to be price variance. Spielberg added, you're going to have to pay $25 to see the next Iron Man, and you're probably only going to have to pay $7 to see Lincoln. That's kind of funny. He's
Well,
it's his own movie.
I think he's being a little exaggerating in the span, but yeah, I think that is it actually makes sense, right? This goes back to what I was saying about economics, right? You charge as much as the market will bear, and that's all you can charge, right? Otherwise, you make nothing.
Netters Network says, that's a big note from me. Well, then you can't see Iron Man 6 and you go see Lincoln, okay? Like the rest of the please.
The other thing I was thinking was,
I'm just kidding.
I hope that if it does become as is described here, where it's like a night out to the opera or whatever, then people will start friggin' dressing up when they go and shut the kids up and turn off the phones and stop taking pictures of your popcorn.
Are you kidding me? This was a problem on Broadway with people with phones. I remember there was one play where I believe Daniel Craig actually interrupted and yelled at someone in the audience for the phone going off during the middle of the
and I'll tell you something else. Netter and I would be the first ones to be up to the front and calling an usher saying, either, stop these kids from making the noise and distracting us or give us our $40 back.
I can't pay that much to see a movie. They've already gotten too expensive as it is. Remember the old days when a matinee would cost you like $4 or $5?
Well,
and you could go see a brand new movie during the day.
It does come down to if it's I don't know, a re-release of The Land Before Time, then we're not spending more than $5 each to go see it, right? Because and even then we're only doing it because it's a night out to the cinema. If it's the premiere week of Dune 2, maybe I'll spend $15 a ticket for it. But then I'm expecting to get those better seats or whatever the case is. And I've got my price range in my head, I know how far I'm willing to go, and I'm not going to go farther. And I'm sure that most people do. And if they try this, they will find that out and they will start to figure out, okay, well, yeah, we got to back off a little bit, but we can have a range of prices, sure.
But in this instance, I don't think this is Hollywood leading this. This is more the theater chains, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so
in fact, it could be AMC and not Cinemark or whatever, right? Cinemark says, nope, we're gonna be the budget. We're going to always have the same low rate, and maybe that's how they market. That's what marketing is.
I have a question. If they start doing this, will Hollywood then start thinking, can we? Maybe this is how it works already. Do they take a bigger share of, let's say, a Star Wars movie than, let's say, I don't know, like an independent film from Miramax or whatever?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Could they? Yes. Will they? Maybe, maybe not, because it becomes the whole same thing that we saw a couple of years ago or the past year. We're going to go day and date. Okay, screw you. We won't carry your movies anymore. Oh, wait.
I remember, wasn't Disney wasn't Disney requiring a certain number of weeks for their movies coming to theaters? Like when you were a theater chain would have to keep like
Yeah.
the latest Star Wars in there for so
Yeah.
many weeks. I remember they were kind of putting a stranglehold on that. You got to keep these on the screens for this many weeks.
You have to understand that all of these variances, all of these elements are things that can be tweaked, but there is a homeostasis that is eventually reached. You can raise your prices however you want. Movies, the theaters and the studios can do whatever they want to each other. All of this stuff is in play. The question is, at some point, you've got to find that middle ground where everybody's happy. Otherwise that movie never makes it to the theaters. The viewers don't see the movie. The studio doesn't make any money. So somewhere in the middle is where it all balances out. And I honestly will be interested to see where this goes. Yes, I do understand why they're doing this, and yes, I think they should. But like I said, if I'm paying a premium price to go see that movie, then you better shut your kid up or get the hell out, or I'm getting my money back, because I'm paying too damn much money not to be able to see the movie because of your screaming kids.
I remember spending 75 cents to go see a double feature. How much was the popcorn? I'm curious about.
Oh
that.
yeah, that was $10, but that's
Popcorn's $10. It's the best popcorn you've ever had. Truffle oil used in it. Come on.
Yeah, no, it used to be that way. It's not anymore. It's really not that good. I've Netter knows how much I like popcorn, and we used to always get the popcorn when we go to the theater. And I'm like, actually, Netter, you make better popcorn. How about we just get a small one so I can feel like I'm contributing to the cinema?
There was one chain that had really good popcorn. Is it Carmike Cinemas? They had one in a city a little further away from me, but their popcorn was actually really good. Like they used the good stuff, but I don't remember what their name was now. But Ron Howard chimed in. Multiplex is going to become a little bit like Broadway in a way. That's where the expensive projects go. It's to get as many people in there to create memorable events. There's also going to be a place for dramas playing out on big screens, more sophisticated fare for perhaps older audiences. The exhibitors are going to define that price point where the economics can work. I have to say, what's driving me nuts about this is movies are they were like a cheap night out at least for me, when I was able to finally drive on my own. I could, go out with some friends. We get something. We'd go to a movie. You wouldn't break the bank doing this.
I guess you're right. I guess that's what I did too. Yeah.
If these things become like Broadway prices, I mean, is there going to have to be something then to replace movies? If there's going to become like the elite entertainment. I mean, I don't know how plays were before the movies took over as the primary entertainment in this country, but I wonder if they were more accessible and cheaper for the average American before movies became the go-to thing. I just, you want to get out of the house, and do something,
exactly,
and not that we've been doing that these past couple of years, but I don't like this price variance. It doesn't shock me that it's going to happen. In fact, part of me wonders why it's taken so long, because think about it. How much could you have charged for those Avengers movies later on? They probably could have charged twice as much for those tickets, and people would have paid.
Here's the other thing I'm going to say about it. Are you going to spend, I don't know, let's say it's $10 for the ticket, plus the $1.75 or $1.50 Batman surcharge, and then double that if you're taking a date, quadruple it if you're taking your family.
Oh yeah, kids,
and buy all of the popcorn and soda and whatever else you're going to get, or you're going to go, you know what? Let's just wait 45 days. It'll be on HBO Max, next month.
And then one of your kids says, "I hate you, Dad," and runs to the room.
Honestly, do you think the kids care that much about going to see Batman? The fact is probably not. Yeah, it's the dad that probably wants to see it.
Okay, don't remember I was 9 years old. Can I ask what the double feature was, the net, or if you don't want to, you don't have to say if you don't want to. I'm curious.
I'm not even touching this one, because if I was going to poke at Netter on this one, I would say
I'm not going to poke. I'm just curious.
She probably spent 75 cents for one movie, and it became a double feature because she snuck in.
What? I've never done that.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I know some people do.
Boomer, I was 9 years old. I don't remember.
Well, I'll tell you this, Boomer. The reason I never snuck into another movie, I don't think I remember ever going to see a movie where there was another movie that I really, really, really wanted to see in another theater.
No, when I was a nice young adult and was able to go to theaters on my own, I would actually do double features. I made a point. I saw American History X and Pleasantville in a row together, and I did American History X
I like Pleasantville
first because that was better to see that one first in Pleasantville. I did some double features. I know I did The Cooler with something else. I saw The Cooler. What did I see with The Cooler? Oh, it was that 12 grams or 6 grams, whatever that Sean Penn thing. I didn't care as much for that one, but I saw The Cooler and that one together. I used to do double features of like the big, like the Oscar buzz or just the critically acclaimed stuff.
The only double features I ever saw were at the drive-ins.
But yeah, now everything's expensive. That was back when Regal had a card where I think I would get bonus things or something. I don't know. Intellivision Amico's future is questioned as new investment campaign ends early.
This one's all you, man. I got no ideas.
What do you mean you have no idea?
I've heard of Intellivision. That's
You've
all
heard
I
of
know.
Intellivision. Well,
As a company.
Let me tell you something. I am thinking about. I want to tell you that I am bringing back the Vectrex. I'm starting independent. The Vectrex Evolution. I'll need $399 down payment up front, and you will get your Vectrex Evolution. We're going to be bringing it back in a big way. You interested? You going to support my campaign?
That sounds awesome. Also, what is a Vectrex?
You don't know what a Vectrex is?
No.
It was another home game console. They came with their own monitor back in the day. This was. Never mind. Was it
a monitor with a single color, like green or something?
No, it was like a tall monitor. It was a Vectrex. I think this company ended up buying a lot of monitors that this firm couldn't use.
There's on the 30-second delay, so she's just laughing at my joke.
No, it's a vector display unit. All sorts of neat things. Come on, software for it. It had a list of Vectrex games.
Dude,
Vectrex releases.
I'm lost. Why don't we just explain this?
Berserk, you like Berserk? Never mind. Okay.
Wait, Berserk, was that the one with where you're fighting the lightning robots and they're coming through the maze to get you?
I don't know. Cosmic Chasm. I've never heard of any of these things. Anyway, the point is that this was not for the Vectrex. This is for the Intellivision Amico.
Yeah. Berserk. Yeah, I remember Berserk. Yeah, Netter and I both remember. Well, assuming it's the same Berserk we're talking about.
It could be a different Berserk. I don't know if people have that. Anyway. No, okay. New Doubt has... Okay, you remember the Intellivision, right?
Yes.
Did you have an Intellivision?
No, I did not.
Wasn't it a competitor to Atari?
I was going to say, yeah, I had the Atari 2600, so I did not have Intellivision.
Well, years back, Tommy Talrico and a bunch of other people were going to be bringing back the Intellivision, and the idea was it was going to be they're going to bring family time back, and they said they had Toys R Us was interested, and maybe it wasn't Toys R Us, maybe it was Target and other retailers. They were going to be picking
Toys R Us. We're going.
Maybe it wasn't Toys R Us. Toys R Us. It wasn't Toys R Us. I'm putting words in Tommy Talrico's mouth. Let me read the article. This will clear things up. It won't. New doubt has been cast over the Intellivision's Amico's release after the company cut a new investment campaign short. The system, which was originally due to be released in October 2020, but has suffered numerous delays since then, is still without a release date despite having already sold some physical games. In an attempt to raise new investment of $5 million for the system as it seemingly near its release, Intellivision launched a campaign on Start Engine offering shares in the company. However, the campaign has been ended early, 2 months earlier than its closing date, with just $58,001 raised from 54 investors. Tech journalist San Makovec tweeted that they believe the early closure was about as bright and red a flag as it gets in the world of unreleased tech hardware. My guesses are that Intellivision realized investment momentum had frozen. They get the money sooner if they conclude ASAP, and that claiming and spending this money is the last step before bankruptcy filing. The Amico system was originally due to be released in October 2020, but the pandemic pushed back to April 2021, then again fall 2021. In August, Intellivision emailed pre-order customers and told them it had been delayed a third time. It would release in a not yet to be confirmed date at the end of 2021, a deadline which has clearly also been missed. The company even started selling 8 of its box launch games back in October, despite the console not yet having a release date. In an extensive interview with VGC last year, the CEO, Tommy Talrico, explained that the Amico is specifically aimed at families in that its entire ecosystem and game library revolves around safe, family-friendly gaming. To accomplish this, every game in the Amico library has to meet a set of criteria, including no extreme violence, sexual content, bad language, downloadable content, microtransactions, or in-game ads. Every game will be rated E for everyone, or PEGI 7 in Europe, and each game will include co-op, local co-op pay. Tommy Talrico has since stepped down as from the CEO role, with the company's former chief revenue officer Phil Adam taking over. Tommy Talrico, he wasn't known for making a lot of video game soundtracks back in the day. He did the score to Earthworm Jim. You probably heard of that game, right?
I have, yeah.
Supposedly Earthworm Jim 3 was going to be an Amico exclusive. They even got the original creators around to make it. I remember seeing this thing thinking, well, we'll see what happens when it comes out. It was being crowdfunded. You could still pre-order one for $299.99 at GameStop.
Yeah, it's sounding like it's probably not a good idea for you to be doing that.
This one YouTuber I like, I think I always get his name. I think it's Matt Little Pixel. He talked about it, and he said that he got the games in the mail, and they were like printed on these cards. And he said, I guess you scan these in the console and they download the game from the internet. He was hoping they were going to be like actual cartridges, and you get like a gold coin. And he said he kept referring to them as greeting cards. I supported this thing. I got a bunch of greeting cards in the mail instead of games, and it's looking like this system's not coming out. And the reason I bring this up is that you know how I am getting with some of these crowdfunded stuff, how there are all these promises made, and then the thing doesn't actually come out. And this seems like a much bigger deal than even some of the comics that I've supported. It's $299. I guess people will get their money refunded, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
You think so?
I don't know. Here's what it comes down to. When it comes to a crowdfund, just remember, if it's a big name that you can trust, maybe it's worth getting behind.
It's the Intellivision name.
I'm thinking like Uncle Ethan with his comics, he's been pretty spot on. If it's a story that looks really good, but some sketchy name you've never heard of before, who's kind of an independent, then maybe you wait and find out, if his comics actually happening, or if he gets arrested for, dolphin loving some children,
Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm still less on that right now, but yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, just saying. Anyway, but I guess Tommy Talrico, he was a name in the industry, so people trusted him. They got the whole Earthworm Jim back. They had actual licensed games on this thing. They had a new version of Missile Command.
I do, yeah.
They were gonna have a new version of that on here.
Was that an Intellivision?
It was on Atari.
Game? I thought it was on Atari.
It was an Atari game. It might have gotten a port, or maybe it doesn't matter because they're just using the name brand recognition.
I was just going to say, I think that was one of the games that Intellivision had a license to do and actually did a better version of it than the 2600. That kind of pissed me off because I got Atari because, they were going to have all my favorite games. They were going to have Missile Command. They were going to have Space Invaders and Asteroids. But when Intellivision started doing them, they looked much better, more like the arcade versions,
And Moon Patrol, is that what it is? The Moonlander game where you're driving on the moon? They had that one on a new version of that one. They had apparently an Evil Knievel game.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking, I don't know if the kids know who Evil Knievel is. That's the stuff.
I don't think it matters because I think the gameplay would have you thinking he was a fictional character, and then maybe they find out from their parents, Evil Knievel was a real person, and then you go look over at the Mego site where they've got the new license for the Evil Knievel action figure, and Let's bring the 70s back, guys, because I know I sure as hell
This
am
whole
not
console
enjoying the
seemed like a
2020s.
throwback to me. It's like Missile Command and Evil Knievel,
Yeah,
and it's like
yeah, yeah.
what? And I think the idea was he kept trying to sell it's going to bring Family Night back, and I think the idea was the games were supposed to be cheap, like $5 if you download. You could connect the internet, download for $5, which I can respect. But it's funny. In one interview, I was watching an interview for a year ago, and like the recent comments on this interview are not kind to Mr. Talrico. They were because like he would say like, well, the Switch is like peaked and it's not going to outdo the Wii, and Nintendo's kind of he was sort of downplaying Nintendo. Like Nintendo has been killing it on the Switch. Where are you coming from?
Yeah.
Because they were arguing, well, what isn't your target sort of what the Switch does? Because that's more the family orientated system out of the big three. And he says, well, yes, but we're, I don't know. It's looking like this thing is never going to see the light of day. And
Probably not. No.
I'm just, because I remember hearing about this years ago. I was like, oh, that might be interesting. I realized, and then I saw this article. I'm like, this still hasn't come out yet.
Right.
Do you think it's going to see the light of day at this point? Do you think this is bleeding money? I don't know.
I got to say, it doesn't sound very promising to me.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Based on what you've said, that's all I know. So
Intellivision, I was trying to think what's left of the old consoles has been made yet. That's why I thought Vectrex. I'm trying to think what else. It's Commodore 64, right? Maybe Commodore will be making a comeback, right?
That might be kind of cool. Especially if
they
bring
did
back
they
the
did a
old text
retro
adventures.
console. Well, they did a retro version of it that you can buy, but it's not the same. Okay. Well, I think that's it for our news, right? I think we ended on a high note. I'm kidding. Just with the.
Well, for me, it's kind of a neutral note, but okay.
Would you have purchased this thing if it had come out? Maybe, huh?
Well, I didn't even know about it. So maybe if it did come out and you came to me and told me about it, and it was like, really?
People
$5 for a game? Yeah, maybe.
People are apparently he's been on the Atari Age forums and he's been talking a lot of trash about people. People are yelling at him on the Atari Age forum. So I don't know.
That is an absolute indication that this is going to implode. Then
we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. Were they trying to raise $5 million and end up with 58,000? Is that what I got from that article?
Yeah, that does not sound good.
Okay. Well, anyways, that's the news for the week. What you got going on this week?
Well, you see, I'm glad you're here because you weren't there last night, so I couldn't ask you. Tuesday night, anything over on Mr. Mastix? Nope. Wednesday over on.
Week. Birdman, yes, I believe that we are the Dirty Harry rewatch was postponed till then.
Gotcha.
Let me just double check. I know at some point though we are going to be doing. Whoa, there's soundtracks of Birdman. Hold on a second. I'm assuming it's Dirty Harry this week, or Bullet, but probably Dirty Harry. Okay.
And then let's see, Friday, last call. First hour, we have a very special guest. Mike, the Mexican Iron Man, will be joining us for drinks and hopefully some positive, uplifting, chat. And then I don't know what we'll do for the second hour. We'll see what the conversation in the first hour contains, and we'll probably continue it on without him. That brings us to Saturday, where we will be over on Big Al Presents for a rewatch of the Raymond Burr Godzilla from 19 old time. I don't remember.
1950 something, maybe
something like that. Yeah. And I guess that brings us back around to Sunday.
Yeah, and Zootopia, are we good for that? I can always text you with more details, but you good for next week, 8 o'clock? You want to pop on here? Not 8 o'clock, excuse me, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll talk about Bond in the beginning. What do you think? Let me know. All right, and great stream. Have a great night. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about the latest Bond, No Time to Die, because I'm not happy.
I don't know, man. It sounds like at this point you have no time for Bond.
I'm done. I'll talk
you.
more about it next week.
Next week, yeah.
I am not happy. Of course, I'll say it for next week. I want to start screaming about it now, but okay.
Little peek behind the curtain, so you know what's coming up, people.
Right, cool. I'll text you. All right, Zootopia. I'll text you. All right,
All
I'll
right.
catch y'all later,
Take
and
care.
y'all have a good week. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.